Welcome back, guys, to another Ming Tech Media LeetCoding video. And today we're going to look at LeetCode 1512, find the number of good pairs. So I'm going to read the problem statement, and it says, given an array of integers nums, pair I and j is called good if nums I is equals to nums j and I is less than j. So return the number of good pairs. So we have the example 1 where nums is equals to 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 3. Those are the values in that array here. And the output is 4. Well, how do they get that? There's 4 good pairs, 0 and 3. And we're going off the 0 index because, arrays are indexed from 0. So 0 and 3. So you check out the array at index, the value at index 0, sorry. And that's 1. And then you go over to this is the first index, 1, 2, 3. So that's a good pair because nums I is equals to nums j. And I is less than j, meaning the I here and this is less than j. So 0 here is less than 3. 0 here is less than 4. So that's what they mean. And that pair is just like the index here is less than the index here. So the index I is less than j. So basically your pair is going to be I and j, right? Those are going to be your values. And I just represents the index and j is also the index. J is, the first number in that pair, and I is the first number in that pair and j is the second number. So that's what they mean by that, just in case you're confused, right? And that's one case. And then there's another case where we have the output 6 here with 4 ones in an array. And that's because you can pair 0 with 1, 2, and 3. You can pair 1 with 1, 2, and 3. So that, and you keep doing that and you're going to get 6. You're going to get 6 pairs, right? And here, since every number is unique, the output is 0, right? So when you look at a problem like this, and the few things should jump out at you, right? One of the keywords and clues that you can pull from this is the word pairs. And if you think of pairs, you think, and you should already immediately just gear your head to hash maps, because hash maps are a data structure that can store key value pairs. So, we're definitely going to need some sort of hashing solution or hash map type of solution. So let's just try and see what that means, right? And I'm going to explain the logic here, right? And I'm going to basically just have a bunch of comments that is going to explain like what we're going to do, right? First thing we're going to do is we're going to have to create a map. We're going to have to create hash map, right? I'm just writing these steps down here, right? The second thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to iterate through that hash map. And when we iterate through the hash map, we're going to just check to see if that value is there. And there's a special method that I'm going to talk about that helps you do that, right? So iterate through hash map and check to see if value is present, right? And if that value is present, we increment the value in there, right? We increment the value in that key because it's a key value pair. So like, let's just say, so for this nums array here, this n here, we'll add it to the hash map. Initially it won't be there, and we keep iterating. Oh, we see n again, we increment that value. And once we increment the value, we also increment, we're going to have like a result variable. And I guess I should add that there. Let me just see. This should be actually the first step. So it's like, I'm going to say 0th step. Create result variable. Ooh, result variable, right? So every time we find a pair, we want to increment that. And also Once we finish iterating through the map, we just want to return that result. So let's just actually what we want to do is before we actually return a result in that for loop, or whatever loop you decide to use, but I'm going to use a for loop. What we want to do is we want to get the value of n, and we want to add it to the result, because what we want to get the value, because when we ask map to get an n, we're asking it to get the value associated with n. So essentially, like, this would be the n, 1 would be the n, and 1 is just the key, right? Key that we're putting in the hash map. The value is how many times 1 appears, right? Or basically, that's just telling us how many pairs there are. So we're just going to add that to a result, right? And then after that, once that breaks out of the loop, we want to return a result. So it's going to start to make sense here. Once I start to code this out, return result. All right, so what is that going to look like? So let's do that. And this, they already give you your method signature here. So you already know you have to have some sort of int. So I'm going to say int result equals 0 here, and we can just return result. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Right now, what we want to do is we want to create our hash map, right? So I'm going to say, let's go map integer, spelled that wrong, integer, and another, because it's a hash map, so it's going to be key value pairs. So the key is going to be an integer and the value is going to be an integer. And we're going to just say map is equals to new hash map. Hash map. Right? So we've created that hash map. Now we want to iterate through the hash map, right? So I'm going to use an enhanced for loop here. So I'm going to say for int x in nums, right? And what we want to do is we want to put the n that the x that we find here, and we're going to use a special method called getter default, right? And I'm going to include a link in the description to the Oracle docs. In fact, I have a tab open. We could just go over it really quick and then we'll come back to that. So this is getter default, and what does it do? It returns the value to which the specified key is mapped, or default value if the map contains no mapping for the key. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to just see if the value is present in the map already. And if it is, we're going to just add a 1 to it, to we're going to see if the key is already in the map. And if it is, we're going to add a 1 to the value. And if it's not, we're just going to, add 0 there, right? So the default is, or add 0 as the default, right? So the default is going to be 0. So that's going to be the second parameter passed to this method, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to do map get or default. And what we can say is we're going to check the x if it's there, and 0 is our default value, and then we add 1. Hope that logic, that's the most, that's the most complex bit of logic that's in this code, and I hope I explained that well. Again, I'll put a link to this in the description so you can read up on this method, and hopefully it'll give you some insight. So then we're going to take the result, right? And we're going to do plus equals map dot get x minus 1. And you might be wondering, what is the x minus 1 here? What is that? What does that even mean? Well, basically, all that is saying there might be an additional pair that can be found between x in all the previous values, and the x just means, well, let me just write a comment here. Additional pairs can be found between x and all previous v is equal to n. And v here just means the value of array nodes, and it finds all where it finds all j where j is less than I and nums is j, or I is less than j, sorry, and nums j is equals to nums I, basically. So that's what that does. Now let me get rid of this these comments. And if you're in an interview, you just want to kind of basically use like some pseudocode or maybe comments or something like that to kind of outline the steps that you want to do before coding. And this is basically the full solution here. And we're just going to test this to see if it runs. And there you go, it's accepted, right? So just to recap, very simple solution, like 10 or so lines. The most complex bit of logic is right here. On line 6 with that getter default method, it kind of tripped me up when I was, trying to figure it out, or just figure out some sort of method to, help me keep track of the pairs here, right? So just to recap very briefly, right? What we want to do is we have an int result, right? Because you have to return an int. So automatically when you see that, and you see any LeetCode problem that has like an int return type or some return type that you have to return, you should just throw it at the bottom here so you don't forget to return it. And that's what I usually do. So for a problem like this, I have the int result, I set it equal to 0. I created a hash map of integers, right? And I iterated through the array that we're given. And for each iteration, I'm going to check using a get or default method whether that number at that present iteration is in the map. And if it's not, we're going to add a default 0. And if it is, we're just going to add 1 to that value, right? And then what we want to do is we want to get the result, right? And do map.get. And we have an offset of -1 for the additional pairs. I spelled additional wrong. So map.get is going to get the values, right, of x. And basically when we get the value, this is, so what we're saying here, like, all right, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but I want to make this explicitly clear, right? When you say map.get, right, map.get, you're asking for the key, and what map.get is going to return to you is the value. The value returns value, right? So basically, when we go through an iteration, we're going to see how many times, or basically how many pairs, because that's what the value is representing here in this map, is how many pairs for that x exist in this map, right? And we're going to throw it into result. And again, there is an offset because of additional pairs that can be found, because you're using a 0 index. And yeah, so basically map.get returns the value, and you pass it a key, and the key is the x that is, these are the x's that we're iterating through, and we're trying to see how many of these we find, right? And after that, we're going to return a result, and that's basically the solution for this problem. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please just leave something in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And if you're still a little bit shaky on things, like I said, just leave a comment and I'll try and answer any clarifying questions that you might have. All right. And that's it for this video. It's really brief. And this kind of lends to how to solve these types of problems. Like, you want to look for clues, and the clues that we saw here were the word pair and the fact that, this is an array, and we are trying to basically iterate through this array and sort of just kind of figure out how many of each value are or how many pairs are given in this array. So when you look at that, that's like the biggest clue here to using hash maps. And in general, for these types of problems, a hash map might be the go-to answer or the go-to solution for a lot of these problems. It's a very good data structure. You should learn a lot about it. But that's it for this tutorial. Don't want to ramble on too much. Like, comment, subscribe for more content, and you have a beautiful blessing.